Okay, so I wanted to put my 2 cents in on the whole gun law debate thing in the wake of the Newtown, Connecticut shootings. Everybody who is in support of making guns harder to acquire for pretty much anybody is blaming Newtown or any other possible act of violence that could involve a gun on the guns themselves, which I think is stupid. The guns are not the problem. The people using the guns are the problem. I'm already probably going to have a hard enough time getting my FOID card because I was in the psych ward for a week a couple of years ago. I mean, the government literally doesn't trust anybody with even a remote psychological disorder background with a gun. Because they're too focused on the damage that the guns themselves do. Whether or not somebody has a gun is not going to stop them from committing a crime or killing people. The two largest instances of death in recent history, in recent American history, did not involve guns in any way, shape, or form. And the two examples I'm thinking of off the top of my head are the Oklahoma City bombing and obviously 9/11. The Oklahoma City bombing was, well, a bomb. Timothy McVeigh literally rented a Ryder truck, or either rented or bought, I can't remember, but he used a Ryder truck filled with explosives to blow up the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City. September 11th, obviously, I don't think there's a single person on this planet who doesn't at least know what happened. 4 planes, 3 successful targets, 2 buildings destroyed. Actually, technically, 7 buildings destroyed if you want to think about it like that. If you count each building in the World Trade Center complex as a separate building. But anyway, my point is the guns are not the problem. Guns are not the problem, have never been the problem, will never be the problem. People are wanting anybody who's purchasing a gun to go through a rigorous background check. If the person who is purchasing the gun has never done anything wrong, has kept under the radar, even if they have done something wrong, but it's kept under the radar, that's not going to pop up on a criminal background check. If they're looking for potential criminal activity, but nothing has happened yet with this person, it's not going to pop up on a background check. So background checks are pretty much useless in this scenario. And I don't understand why nobody is getting that. Like, the only thing I've got even remotely against me for getting a FOID card is that week I spent in the psych ward, and I voluntarily admitted myself to the psych ward. So it's not even like I was put in the psych ward under police order. I put myself there because I understood there was something wrong with me that I needed fixing. If anything, that proves I am very of sound mind. And that shouldn't disqualify, just because it exists on my record, that shouldn't disqualify me from getting a FOID card. So I think anybody who wants to ban weaponry altogether, or at least firearms altogether, is a fucking moron. Because not everybody who purchases a gun has violent intentions. If I do end up getting my FOID card and purchasing a gun, there's only one there's only one thing I'm going to be violent towards, and that is paper targets 50 yards down range. At least I think that's what the rifle range is around here. I think it's 50-yard rifle range, but anyway. That's the only thing I'm going to be violent towards, is paper targets, 50 yards down range for a rifle, 25 for a pistol. Because I will be using both, once I get the money for them. Target shooting is an excellent stress reliever. I've never fired a gun before, and I know that. If you want to take your aggression out on an inanimate object, what do you normally look for around you? You look for a weapon, baseball bat, your fists, your own fists. I've got a punching bag in my basement for aggression, to take out my aggression on. Of course, I've kicked the refrigerator next to it a few times, and I've punched a brick wall, because I've been that pissed off, but most of the time I hit the punching bag. And it helps. Aggression... There are constructive things to do with firearms, and taking out your aggression on a paper target is a very constructive thing you can do with firearms. And that is the only thing I would ever use a firearm for, is target shooting. Because it's fun. It's fun, it builds coordination, it builds other skills. There's a lot of benefits to owning a gun. Not to mention, as long as you're smart about it, home defense. Somebody breaks into your house, you really think they're going to argue with an M1911? No. Think they're going to you think they're going to argue with a Deagle? No. AK-47? No. M4? No. Of course, the one weapon I really want for home defense is a working replica of Masamune, which is the sword used by Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. It is a 6-foot, 1-inch long Nodachi. So he breaks into your house, you brandish a 6-foot long sword at them, they're gonna shit their pants and run, that's for sure. I wouldn't use it on them, I wouldn't have to use it on them, I would just brandish it. Like, you really want to fuck around with a 6-foot long sword? Okay, go for it. You're not gonna be able to get to me. Unless you got a gun, then I'm kind of fucked. But, that being said, I've seen videos of people who have tried to rob a place with a gun. There's one video in particular I remember that sticks out in my mind. A man walked into a convenience store and brandished a gun. Like, as soon as he walked in the door, he brandished a gun and started pointing it at the cashier. There was also a customer standing at the desk, or at the front counter, who happened to be a police officer. An armed police officer. As soon as this guy brandishes his gun, the officer turns around, pulls out his gun, and this guy freezes and kind of sets the gun, or he doesn't even set the gun down, he lowers his gun and immediately gets down on the ground because resistance was met. He knew he was going to be entirely outgunned by this police officer. He was probably carrying either a Glock or a 1911. Neither of which I want to be on the business end of. I mean, yeah, in terms of firepower, the 1911 vastly outclasses the Glock, but the Glock is still a very reliable handgun, and it will get the job done. I wanted a Glock 17 for quite some time until my friend talked me into wanting an M1911 instead. But, that being said, guns are not the problem. The people wielding the guns are the problem. And even then, there is no way to fully account for all... There's no way to fully account for all circumstances of a person. You can do as many background checks as you want, but if nothing has popped up on their record, if they're not in the system for gang-related violence, domestic violence, violent crimes of any kind, then they're going to pop up scot-free. In fact, if somebody were trying to outsmart the system, that would... I'm not advocating it, but that would be the best way to do it. If they were really about to commit a violent crime, just don't do anything up until... That's exactly what they would probably do. They just wouldn't do anything up until the point they needed to acquire the weaponry for said violent crime, and then once they've got the weaponry, once it's in their hands, we're done. I mean, the system can't go any further than that. So... even if they do put a ban on all firearm-related weaponry, there's still a little thing I like to call the black market. Banning guns will not keep them out of the people's hands. There's no two ways about it. But those are my thoughts. I will see you all around. Comment, like, subscribe, whatever. And I hope to hear feedback from you guys. Peace.